I think we've all had a lot to think about over the last 2 days. And as we come to the end of our 2-day conference, I think it's useful to try to identify the key ways in which the ideas generated over these 2 days can actually be practically implemented in classrooms. To draw the roadmap for the future and to show the way forward for the Beaconhouse school system, I'd now like to welcome one of the most integral parts of the Beaconhouse school system family, Mrs. Roohi Haq. Mrs. Haq has been associated with the Beaconhouse school system for almost 26 years, starting out as a primary school teacher in 1984. She quickly made her way up the ranks, first as an English language coordinator for the Northern region and then headmistress of the primary school in 1989. During her short 4-year tenure as headmistress, the school grew at a relentless pace. By 1993, she'd become academic coordinator for the Northern region, and in 1996, she was appointed the Director of Studies, a position she holds today. Mrs. Haq is an accredited teacher trainer with a real enthusiasm for teaching, and she puts it to good use in her capacity as motivational speaker for teachers. Having met Mrs. Haq quite recently, I got a real sense of the continuity and sense of family which she brings to Beaconhouse. When we were speaking about the early years when she first joined, her passion and enthusiasm came through strongly as she recalled the time when classes were being taken in what is now Mrs. Kasuri's dining room. Her eyes lit up as she spoke fondly of the spirit and sense of community that was fostered by the management and the benefits of the informal systems of communication and administration which existed back when Beaconhouse was a smaller organization. As we spoke of all the ways in which things could be improved, I realized that her many years of experience within the organization during its many phases of growth and expansion were an invaluable asset for Beaconhouse, particularly at a time when it is formulating a practical strategy for implementing the change envisioned in conferences such as today. Tireless, good-humored, passionate, and fiercely loyal to the Beaconhouse cause, Mrs. Haq is an inspiring leader for teachers and a force to be reckoned with as an administrator. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mrs. Roohi Haq.
How am I going to live up to all this? Not possible. Thank you so much, Kiran, for your remarks. I don't know if I can live up to them. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, passion. Thinking back and thinking about the morning, I wonder if you realized that Richard Gerver's passion was informed passion. Along his journey as a teacher, as a primary school teacher, and as a head of school, he had come across incidents that he had learned from, that had reiterated probably some of the thoughts that he had. It reinforced his love for children and, I suppose, added to his being that inspirational teacher that he is today. Inspiration without knowledge, without understanding, without experience is merely a dream. You need the experience, you need the knowledge to be a lifelong learner, and your passion will only increase. I was a very passionate primary school teacher. I was a very passionate school head. I could relate thousands of experiences similar to Richard Gerver, but I know that I have changed ever since my journey in professional development began at Beaconhouse. That is the note that I want to begin with. I also want to use two quotes It's a long introduction. Have you ever heard of cognitive dissonance? It comes when you've come across so many ideas, so many thoughts, everybody bringing his own experience, such a large audience, so many speakers. I apologize if my presentation looks mundane, sounds mundane, but that's all I've been able to think of in these last 2 hours. What's happened at the conference cannot be put into practice in 2 hours. It's going to take years. It's going to take God knows how many meetings, how much dissemination, how much learning for us to reach where we want to reach. But there's no harm in aiming for the moon. We might never get there, but we can dream. So the first quote that I would like to begin with is, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Beaconhouse, in its value statement in 1995, said, Beaconhouse values its past and looks with discernment into the future. I still maintain that. Somebody said here, I don't know if it was at a panel or somewhere else, that educational change is not always for the better. Change is not always for the better. It is inevitable. And sometimes we change and then we want to go back to what we did right yesterday. So perhaps that word discernment is the word we need to know and understand. Yes, the world is changing, but we've got our context to look at. We cannot change everything overnight. Most of the ideas, and well, I wouldn't say most, every time you go into a debate or a dialogue, you learn something new. And Beaconhouse has been a learning organization ever since I joined it, and even before I joined it 26 years ago. If it was a small conference or a large one, if it was a little training session, we were always eager to go. We wanted to learn the best practices that our colleagues wanted to learn. As teachers, we just wanted our students to learn. We still maintain that. Based on this philosophy, I'm going to just put forward a little way forward. What I've tried to do is, whatever learning has come from the conferences, and this has been done by a team of 4 or 5 people in the academic department this afternoon, we've tried to translate whatever we have been able to take from the conference, look at the real issues within our organization, and some of these have been brought up by the teachers. The curriculum is a big menace. It's an issue. Okay, what do we do? How do we take it forward a little bit? How do we make things better? That's all this presentation is going to do, but a lot of this is superficial and will need a lot more deliberation. 20 years ago, we said the same things, and we tried to bring in more changes in attitude than anything else. I can say that we have successfully, to a point, changed our attitude to failure, our attitude to criticism. As an organization, we welcome feedback more than we used to do 15 years ago or 10 years ago. Our reaction to children failing in the early years and in the primary school is slightly different to what it was maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago. We know that children perform differently at different phases in life. Sometimes they surprise us. We have learned that through this continuous journey of professional development. However, we also realize, as John Holt puts it very well in his book, Why Children Fail, is that if we push and keep pushing children up the years without giving them the adequate literacy and numeracy skills, they are bound to fail as they go higher, or they're bound to have to learn them at some age or another. So all these ideas, how we are going to transform them and make them meaningful for us, it's a small little presentation. I'm not technology savvy, I'm sorry. I'm trying to learn to be. Can you help, please? Yes, thank you. Is it working? It doesn't seem to be. Yeah. Curriculum and pedagogy. We think the issue is it's centrally driven, too structured and rigid. Why? At that point, when we wanted to create a centralized curriculum and Beaconhouse grew too large, we had expertise within a central team. That was the best way of doing it. Today, we have far more informed teachers, more practitioners who are willing to contribute. We have students who are more aware. So how do we do? How do we make it better? Engage and involve all stakeholders in the designing of the curriculum a little bit more than we used to do in the past. That's the only step we think is sane and doable. Why? Expansion of the BSS created the need for a central curriculum. However, we are willing to pilot a negotiated curriculum in a school. We would like one of the schools to volunteer and say, look, give us the framework, give us the attainment targets, let us show you how we are able to do it our way. And then, but before we do that, we need an assessment system of whether we have been able to achieve the targets that were set out in the curriculum. But all I can say is we are willing to pilot a negotiated curriculum in a school. Absence of pre-service training was another reason why we had to do a prescriptive and rigid curriculum. Teachers in Pakistan receive no pre-service training. So most of them do not know how to teach in the classroom. So in order to plan lessons. So there is a demand for teachers to be given lesson plans so that they can learn to plan lessons. Therefore, the prescription. However, we're willing to give more value teachers who, as Richard Gerber said in the morning, are willing to take risks. Teachers who are willing to come up and say, I want to do it this way, this has worked, this is my experience. We're willing to give them value and more value than perhaps we've been giving them in the past. Forced collegiality is an issue. There's a policy that there have to be coordinated lesson plans. And coordinated lesson plans are looked at a malady. I mean, they're a menace for some teachers. They're really